All right, welcome to A Growing Concern. We're going to get right to it because we have two different segments. First segment will be the Burgerville Workers Union, and the second one will be the New Seasons Workers. We're back with Vesta McGee and Jill Farm.
Fam.
I got an R in there.
All right.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I can't read my writing. And you folks are both workers at New Seasons, different New Seasons, probably?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So, we're probably going to talk a lot about the same situations that we did with Mark, but this is a different place. One is a restaurant, and this is a store. Both are Northwest, I think.
Yes.
Isn't New Seasons Northwest?
For now.
New Seasons is moving out?
They're moving down to California now.
The whole store, or just they're opening up stores?
They're opening up stores, and they also bought out a New Leaf Community Market, so they own that company as well.
In Northern California.
Yes.
Yeah. And in Seattle now they're opening up stores and have opened up one store, Mercer Island.
Oh, all right. I see. So, well, they're getting big. That's how Fred Meyer started out. One little store downtown, and look at them now.
Whole Foods.
They're international. Well, I would say international. National anyway on the West Coast. All right. Well, New Seasons has workers, and they're not unionized.
That's correct. Right.
And so how long is this move to be unionized going on?
Well, workers have been meeting for years, but this most recent wave of workers getting together started back in the spring of 2017, and that momentum has carried us up to where we are now.
I see. And where are you now?
Well, we just went public on November 1st. And that we had a delegation of workers deliver a statement of principles and a code of conduct to Wendy Cawley, our CEO. And also we had an accompanying press conference at the Williams store where workers shared their stories about why we are organizing.
Mm-hmm. And so you've both have been involved with this since what did you say, April?
Sometime in the spring,
yes.
Yeah.
And how much headway have you made?
Well, I would say it's been gaining a lot of momentum. Right now we're at over 300 signatures for our statement of principles, and that's both current and former workers that support the New Seasons Workers United.
So it's people who have worked there,
Yes.
or
Yes.
are working.
Yes.
And mostly people who are currently working there.
I would think that would be the case, but you never know for sure because people that did work there probably still know people that do.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
there's still that community
Absolutely.
going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And so how many New Seasons are there in town?
I think it's like 17.
That many?
Yeah, there's
Because I know they just built one a couple years ago in Woodstock over there,
right.
and it's a pretty nice one. It's a little pricey for me, but
Yeah.
they do have a good selection. I actually prefer Trader Joe's myself, but they both have areas where they excel in over the other. But as you were sitting there watching Mark there, do you folks have a formal ask like they do, more or less, with bullet points? And I'm sure you want more money, but do you want any kind of other recognitions like he was talking about?
Definitely, we've discussed it and we've talked about the issues that we have with the company. Right now, our main ask is that we want to sit down with the CEO, Wendy Cawley, and we have a bargaining team of workers who are preparing for that and writing out a list of demands to negotiate with her and other decision makers, but she has not gotten back to us yet.
So you folks are just in the very beginning stages then, compared to the Burgerville workers.
Yeah, we just went public at the beginning of this month.
See, I didn't even really know what that meant, but I basically would go in public because people are cruising through on they don't necessarily know everything that was said on a segment before this. So what exactly does go in public mean?
Well, the New Seasons knew that workers were organizing before November 1st, but November 1st was just kind of our way of saying to the community and presenting ourselves as a collective entity of workers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, and just making ourselves public to the company too and saying we're not afraid, like we have enough signatures now and enough people who are supporting us and want this, that like, here we are, and these are our stories, and now we're going to let the community know.
Is that a matter of law, a threshold of signatures to make them have to listen to you, or is this all just if they want to or not?
Just building support and making sure that we are getting the word out and inviting workers to meetings and organize with us, and be able to see what kind of support we had and who agreed with us. And a lot of people do agree with the statement of principles we came up with.
Mm-hmm. So I have asked around, and I understand that folks that working for New Seasons make a little better pay than the folks working for Burgerville. But then that goes across the board. I mean, checkers at the Safeway make pretty decent money. Mm-hmm. So that's probably isn't as much what you folks are asking for compared to the Burgerville Workers Union. What is the main thing that you folks want?
Well, mostly New Seasons really markets itself on this brand of being the friendliest store in town and really taking care of. Yeah, it's on every bag, it's on our aprons, and they really market themselves as this company that's very benevolent, that really cares for its workers. I get customers all the time that ask me, that want to know that I like my job and that I'm treated well there. And it's absolutely not the worst place to work, but that doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement.
You bet.
Right.
Kind of like our country. Huh?
Right. Right.
Well, so I don't know. Is it too early to determine or measure if you've managed to make any headway with getting in the direction you want to go in?
I believe we absolutely have already.
I think there's definitely been some progress just from the pressure that we've put on them already. For example, recently they made it so that people are able to use their paid sick time and paid time, or protected sick time and paid time off once they start working at New Seasons, whereas before they had to wait 3 months to use their protected sick time and paid time off. And in that 3 months, you could gain enough penalty points to be terminated, and that happened to quite a few individuals.
Terminated for what? I didn't follow that.
For being late or being sick. Like if you were sick in the first 3 months, which working at a grocery store for the first time. Yeah. And so that recently went into effect in the beginning of October, which is great. I believe that part of the reason why it went into effect is because they're feeling the pressure from workers meeting and talking about these issues.
Sure. And I would imagine that if I was doing this, I would probably be encouraging people that shop there to maybe not at the shop. You couldn't be doing that, but the people that shop there to voice their opinions to the management.
Oh, it's actually been great. We have little customer surveys at the end of the receipts.
Oh, really?
And we've actually had customers fill in, like, we support the workers of New Seasons. Please listen to them, things like that. It's great because it's posted in the break room for everybody to see. So I think, there's gaining community and customer support for sure.
Well, that's an important part because, I think people aren't driving across town to shop at a particular New Seasons. They shop in their neighborhood like I would, or like the ones on Division. I'm trying to just think of the ones. I know there's a like you said, 17. I imagine a lot of them are probably more of them on the other side of the river.
Yeah, the majority of them are on the east side.
Are they? Really?
Yeah, yeah. I think.
Well, there's one on 15th and Fremont.
Yeah,
Isn't
that sounds about
no,
right.
that may not
Williams?
No, I'm thinking of Wild Oats or whatever the name of that place is. They changed it. They keep getting bought by somebody new. So there's a lot of those around, and I've been to a couple, 3 of them, and you're right. I forgot about that whole friendly thing. I mean, they're almost like a smiley face based on it.
Yeah.
And most people seem to make it seem like they're genuine. It isn't something they're just throwing out there because they have to.
Do you mean by the workers?
The workers,
oh,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm expected to look friendly. I've had managers come up to me and tell me to smile.
Really?
Yes. And it's, it's not that I'm necessarily trying to be unhappy, like showing out that on my face, but I'm just existing. And I don't necessarily need to smile all the time to be friendly to customers.
Well, sometimes you're thinking too, or you're thinking about your job or whatever, and you're not right there and where everybody is to witness you. So I can understand how that would be. Having to be anything all the time it goes against human nature.
It's a lot of emotional labor to uphold that. reputation of the friendliest store in town, of having to smile all the time and treat customers with the utmost respect, even though that's not always reciprocated. It's a lot of emotional labor.
Yeah, people can be grouchy. Working with the public is sometimes, in some ways, the hardest job of all. You know, but it's got its rewards as well too. And I imagine that you get both barrels on that one, good and bad. Well, the fellow before us, Mark, he had some good bullet points. I don't remember where I put those here. Healthcare, paid holidays, you know, injuries. I don't know if injury would be as big a deal working where you guys are working.
Actually, you worked in prepared foods. I haven't, but I've heard stories, and I've also seen people who have been injured in the prepared food sector, in produce, where you have to do heavy lifting or you're working directly with food. And I read somewhere that I think New Seasons has like 40 injuries a month on average, and like a company that size should have like 13 injuries on average a month. So there's quite a few injuries, and equipment that is out of date, and employees ask for new equipment or for repairs, but the company doesn't want to pay for it, or and so people can get hurt that way for sure.
I'll be darned. I was surprised. I didn't think there'd be that many, because it didn't seem like anything that was dangerous. But then the cooking, I know that, you know, I don't know if they're all the same, but there's a section where you can have a burrito made, and there's a section where you can have the either rice or pasta, and then there's a hot food thing there where you can serve yourself. Are they all basically the same that way?
I think most of the deli kitchens are set up that way. Sometimes a little bit more separated, but that general layout. Yes.
Yeah. And then there's the big display cases full of chocolates and things.
Oh yes. Yeah. Very tempting.
Yeah, they are, and they're not very cheap either, but they have a lot. And I appreciate being able to pop in there once in a while and grab, you know, one of them cartons full of some hot food of some kind. Some of it's pretty tempting, but it's not something buying food by the pound has always been pretty tough for me.
Well, they also just raised the hot deli price from
they?
$7.99 to $8.99, and I've had customers
$1 a pop, huh?
be not as happy about that.
No, I wouldn't be, because you know to get any amount at all, you're going to get up there a ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I noticed just recently they had a complete turkey dinner there in different pieces. By the time you add that all up, you might as well just go out to a turkey dinner somewhere. But, you know, it's quick, and that's what that's what it's all about. So, do you currently have health care, paid holidays?
Well, they actually just raised the minimum. So before, do you remember the date that it was?
Well, technically, it'll
minimum?
start. You had to work 20 hours in order to get healthcare at New Seasons
Per week.
And starting in January, they're raising it to 24 hours, but you have to have the hours now on average. So
not bump it up later. And
exactly, yeah. So they'll look at the hours that you're working now, and then depending on whether you're working 20 hours on average or 24, you will get healthcare. You won't get healthcare anymore.
Well, I've talked to people that have gotten health care, but they had to pay for part of it themselves, and it was $300-$400. And so they don't pay for it all, do they? Or do they?
No. Me, for example, I just ended healthcare because I'm a student now and I'm only working a couple days a week. But when I was paying for it, I was paying about $120 a month, which definitely isn't bad for healthcare, but I think that it could still be better.
I know healthcare is a big deal, you know, because I didn't really understand too much of how that all worked. But with the Obamacare, then people didn't have to get it at work. I would think that, you know, a lot of these companies would be happy for something like Obamacare when people could get it somewhere else. Well, I never understood that dynamic. But they're offering you decent health care at a decent price. But it doesn't mean, like you said, it couldn't get better.
Right.
Exactly.
The 24 hours, too, is very impactful for those who are working part-time, those with families, students especially. It used to be that you could work 3 days a week, and still go to school and still have health care through new seasons. But now, because we work 7.5-hour shifts, you either have to work like 8 or 9 hour days, or have some weird 4-hour shift somewhere. And it's definitely impacted those who want to go to school.
That was something I should have talked to with Mark. That I'm used to working. You work 8-hour day or you work 10-hour day. But in a lot of places like fast food or possibly where you're at, you have varying lengths of days. But it's typical to do a 7.5-hour day.
Yeah. With the 30-minute lunch.
Right.
And then if there's any part time to it, it's the amount of days rather than the amount of hours.
Usually.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anyone who works on average less than 7.5 hours a day that they work there.
Some courtesy clerks work from like 5 to close, but that's only like a handful of people per store.
We don't have courtesy clerks.
Oh,
So I don't know.
interesting.
So is that something that the folks that are wanting to be unionized want to change? I would think they would like that, having 7.5 hours.
Well,
Once you're there, why not work?
I would say it's more of like having a voice and a say in those policy changes.
All right, yeah.
New Seasons likes to say democracy is complicated, but it's better than the alternative, which, sure, I'll give them that. But what's going on at New Seasons with the policy changes without any true worker input or representation, that's not democracy. And I think that is what is hitting sour with a lot of people, is that it just happened and we can't really do anything about it.
And you weren't, not that they would do that, but they didn't ask your feelings about it to begin with.
Right.
Exactly.
And like with the previous interview, they don't want to give an inch because in anything.
Right.
And part of that, and they don't want to give you a choice with anything. That also means they probably wouldn't want to ask you for anything, your opinions on anything. And
Well,
they always meaning the management.
They do ask us to. There's a speak up culture at New
good.
Seasons, and they're very proud of it. They say, if you have any questions or any concerns, please come to a manager and speak up. And I think that it really promotes people to, if they're not afraid of speaking up to a manager, depending on whether or not you're well liked in that store by the management. If you do speak up to a manager about your problem, then sometimes you may never hear about that problem again, or like a solution to the problem, a follow-up, and it makes it feel like your problem is a individual problem rather than a social problem that's being experienced by other workers.
People, right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's also why we want to form a workers' union, and so that we can talk with one another about the issues that are going on and build solidarity and find solutions together, so that it can be a democracy and we have a say in the way that we are treated at work and the policies that really affect us.
Well, people will know what affects them better than maybe the people who are affecting them.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, well, another thing I was thinking earlier before we came on camera was this whole thing about students. It seems to me that when I was young, if you want to go to school, you might be making $1.50 an hour pumping gas or something, and this is before the big, burger. Well, McDonald's was around, but it hadn't exploded into what it is now. And if a student could work, a couple 3 days a week, 7.5 hours a day, they could provide some of the money anyway. Obviously, these days, people getting out of school with $100,000 in debt. If they can earn a lot of that along the way, it sure would help them down the road.
Absolutely.
And that's probably something that I would like to see. Because I've talked to people $300,000-$400,000 in debt to become a lawyer or a doctor. That colors the rest of your life.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, hopefully your debt outlives you. Outlives you. Right?
Yeah, I understand that the parents people can have to pay for that.
Right.
Well, I don't know if I would. They have to play hell in catching me. Because if you don't run up the debt, why should you have to pay it? And I don't see that if your parents don't sign on to the debt, or whoever would be held responsible. I don't know. But anyway, that's a digression. This is what we do a lot around here because there's so much of this that fits together.
Absolutely.
We've covered the This whole thing about sanctuary that Mark talked about, is there any talk about that on where you guys are working? Well, E-Verify. Let's go into it from that direction.
We haven't really delved into that yet, but it is something that will very possibly be brought up in the future, and we definitely should talk about.
Mm-hmm. You know, I just kind of let time get away. We got a little under 6 minutes. I forgot to ask the folks, because we've been without phones for call-in here for some time. But if we still have that number, maybe we could get one person to call in and ask any questions, because there's a lot to be learned on this whole unionizing issue. And I tried to, there's a live call-in. It's a new number, and if anybody wants to call in and ask a question, didn't really have time for it. And with the first fella, quite often, you know, calls really bring up information that we either didn't think to or we just totally forgot to talk about. So if we get the flashing light, we'll bring the question on. This is a whole lot different situation, not 100% different situation than the Burgerville. Have you folks been doing anything like they have been doing as far as trying to push with I don't know if it was a picket or whatever it was, but they show up at these places and they go into the places of business and let their will be known. Is any of this being done with New Seasons?
Well, right now the deadline for Wendy Colley to just agree to meet with the workers is Tuesday, November 21st.
Oh,
and
okay.
so
That should be first then, of course.
Right, and so, you know, we'll see what needs to be done after that. But that's kind of what we're focusing on right now. We did have a small delegation at Slabtown, the Slabtown location, New Seasons, on Wednesday. That's Vesta store.
Where's that?
It's in the
It's in Northwest. It's like, right, it's in Nob Hill area, Raleigh and 17th.
Oh, Nob Hill, San Francisco in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is something I hadn't known about. But anyway, we got about 3 minutes. You know, people may not want to call up this late in the show because, you know, we can't really talk that long. But there's a lot to be learned, and unionizing has been something that's very important in this country, and it's something that's had its ups and downs. And do you find, you know, among the people you're working with that the majority of them want a union? Because not everybody's probably signing on to this.
Right.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are scared because of retaliation in the past and just the way that management is about unions. Like they've been putting out flyers that are very anti-union and instilling more fear into people. I mean, most people, I think, see that it's kind of bullshit, but I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, I think it's people see through the brand of New Seasons, and it's hard to say that, you know, to comfort them in their fear when you also face that yourself, right? And people see the bullshit, but they don't have another income, or this is a main source of income for them, and it pays just a little bit higher than the other places, so you really don't want to lose that. And a lot of people, I get a lot of like, I agree with you, but I'm scared. And I hear that so often.
Sure.
And it's truly just a disservice to the power of workers, that they don't see their power. And a union might be that, or, you know, right now we're forming an association of workers, and that has shown to have strength as well. So
what's the difference?
There's not the formalized process, you know, we're just kind of acting concertedly because we can.
We're a union. Yeah, we're acting as if we're a union. It's not the traditional way or the legal way of getting enough signatures. We're just acting as if we are a union right now.
Well, I never thought about that happening that way. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So we're down to about a little over a minute and a half. So you each want to have something to say about what you're doing and what you hope to get out of it?
It's super powerful standing beside my coworkers and hearing them share their stories and being vulnerable and sharing that with the public and seeing them realize their power is just a beautiful thing. And I can't wait to see more of that.
I think it's important for workers to unite together and feel empowered and talk with one another about the issues and come up with solutions together. And just have a representation of workers who know what their issues are. Especially, we just need to get unionized or united before New Seasons gets bigger and bigger and then becomes like Fred Meyer, Whole Foods, or just so big that we can't even talk to corporate at all.
They can't even hear you anymore.
Right.
Yeah, and keep stripping away our benefits, which they're slowly doing now, and it's hard to see until it's all gone. And so
it's a whole lot easier to keep them than it is to get them back.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I can understand that. Well, I thank you both for coming on. We could have gone down and talked about more, but it seems to me that you folks are on the right road, and hopefully they'll knuckle under and perhaps not the right way to put it, but because they don't want to look at it that way, they want to look at it like they're doing themselves a favor. I hope, and because union is the way to go. Solidarity forever.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I want to thank the crew, and we'll see you in a couple weeks on December 1st. Thanks for tuning in.